Welcome back, everyone, to Mindful Leadership Beyond Borders. I am Betska, the Guru Coach with Raj, and our special guest today is Dr. Ken Keis, and we are discussing the importance of assessments. And if you heard him in the first part, he was saying, we need to keep our gas tank full. So please, if you haven't watched that first segment, go ahead and do it. But right now, I'd like us to focus on
which gas tank, mental or
yeah,
financial?
which gas tank? Yeah.
Mental or financial?
Yeah, exactly. So, CRG has developed many outstanding assessments, and let's just cover a few of them here today, Ken. Let's start with the leadership skills inventory, which I'm very familiar with. And I can tell you that the leaders who do it become very cognizant of their own style of communication.
Mhm.
They get to learn about whether they are good, whether they have good coaching sense or mentoring sense. They get to learn about how strategic they are, and so on and so forth. So, what have you found is a benefit to people who use the LSI, as we call it?
Okay. Well, let me answer that in a part in a moment. But the other concept around assessments is this. We were talking about off air about the hesitation for people to take assessments. I don't need this. It doesn't work. And I said, here's what our assessments do. Our assessments don't create the truth. They reveal the truth. So in other words, because you didn't look at your gas tank doesn't mean that it changed it. In other words, you go to the doctor and your blood pressure is high. You don't get angry with the doctor. All the doctor did is reveal what your blood pressure was. So assessments don't create the results. Assessments reveal the results. And so this is a discovery process. So by not doing it, you're simply in denial. And so this idea that, oh, I can live my life, I can be a leader, I can develop without being consciously benchmarking, you're delusional. You really, and I'm not trying to not be judgmental, but you and I probably get a little frustrated, Betska, because individuals who, push back on that, they first of all, we in the first segment we said most people don't know that they don't know, and the next one is they said, well, I don't want to do that on an assessment. Well, you're going to invest more in entertainment today than you are in yourself. And then number three is we want to have a tool that benchmarks the skills and the capabilities and the competencies that you need. So the leadership skills inventory comes out of the book Transforming Leadership, which is the new book's going to be called Transformational Leadership, and an online course of the same name. And what we identified, it was part of a 160-hour university course that was developed over 30 years. And there are 6 components in it to help people to be conscious, awake, and aware. Here's what we know. Most people get into leadership development or leadership positions without any development. So they don't, and it's never been modeled properly for them. If you look around the world, and I just actually wrote an article on it, is just how pathetic is the leadership of the world globally, right? So now, value set, when we think about principles, the first 12 items in the assessment around principles, what's your belief? So one of the reasons that leadership is so toxic around the world these days is because there's so much narcissism, there's so much self-centeredness, there's so much corruption. So if your soul is corrupt, it doesn't matter what the skills are, because you don't believe in the value of human beings, you don't believe in serving, you don't believe. So first of all, as a servant leader, so in the leadership skills, the first 12 are these are the principles. If you really want to be a transformational leader, then these are the principles you need to believe in. And then we have broken it down into what we call 5 segments or sections that each have 12 skills, and they build on each other as a Lego block. Because here's the reality. If I'm going to develop all the 60 skills, which you coach people through, which you help people through, this is not an afternoon event. So most people walk away and say, listen, I want to be a marathon runner. Well, you don't decide this morning to be a marathon runner and then compete on the Ironman or Iron Person or Iron Woman tomorrow. You have to train for the next year before you even compete in a junior event. Well, that's the same thing with leadership. Oh, it's too much work. Well, where's your commitment? Where's your resilience? Where's your dedication to developing self. So the leadership skills is a benchmarking tool, first of all, really to help people be conscious, awake, and aware of who they are.
Yeah.
And then, okay, now they work with you or me or Raj as coaches. Let me help you get there. Now, there's a concept in my book, Wired to More Like Me, which talks about readiness and willingness. And this is what you're talking about, Betska. Are you ready and willing to do the work? Now, there are people who are willing, who are not ready, meaning, let's say, Betska, you need a knee operation. You asked me about it. I said, yeah, come on over. I'll do it for you. I'm willing, but I'm not ready. I've never had any medical training. So what's the likelihood you're going to work with me? You're not going to. Then you have the other side where you have people who actually are probably ready, but they're not willing. They're defiant. They're toxic. All these things that go with it. So the 5 categories in the leadership skills is self-management, managing, and there's 12 different categories from beliefs and grounding and centering and purpose and wellness and all those things. And then we go to interpersonal skills. So first of all is me. Next part is interpersonal, is it's me and you. We're having this conversation and am I listening? Am I interrupting? Do I stay focused? Do I give you feedback about who I am? The next one is coaching. And so now it's me coaching you. How do I get you to be accountable? How do I get you to own your goals? What are your goals? Do you know what you're doing? So I'm assisting you to go somewhere. Then the next level is what we call the team and consulting skills, which is us. So now there's the team. Now all of a sudden the dynamics, I think it was Ken Blanchard, when I was chatting with him years ago, 20 years ago at ASTD, the American Society for Training Development, he said, you know what, when there's 2 people, there's actually 3 relationships. Well, hang on. How's it 3? I said, well, there's me, there's you, and then there's us, right? When there's, or when there's 2 people, there's 3 relationships. When there's 3 people, there's 9 relationships, because it's all of a sudden becomes multiple, right? So there's 3 people, then there's the group of 3, then there's the group that 2, this 2, this 2. So all of a sudden the dynamic goes up. Most people don't know how to facilitate consensus. Now there was a study that I forget, I don't have the resource here for this, but it was a study that said, what is the impact of one toxic person on a team of 6? So you add the 7th person. Their research showed is that it reduces the productivity by 40% of all the team members. So a lot of cases, what we find with leaders is the sin of omission. So they tolerate this toxic person. They tolerate people doing behaviors that are not really aligning with their policies. And then the final set, which is more sophisticated in this group of 5, is really around what we call organizational development, but also situational awareness, meaning at any given moment, if we're not being successful, is it me? Is it you? Is it us? Or is it even the organization where we didn't even, provide the resources to develop? So these leaders are failing. I said, yeah, but we never trained them. We didn't invest in them. So one of my co-authors in Deliberate Leadership, Dr. Mitch Javidi, he does all this training in law enforcement. So why does law enforcement have all these incidents? Because they don't get the training for leadership. They don't get developed. They don't get vetted. So they just get hired. Here's a warm body. We'll put you in this. Yes, you're going to learn how to do the police stuff, but then you're not trained about managing self and your emotions and communications and all those things. So that's really the framework of the leadership skills. And that's why you engage people for over a year in many cases to
absolutely
go through that process, but it's transformational.
Yeah, for sure. The key word you used there was benchmarking. And I'll find with my clients that they'll use the LSI. And then as we're doing the coaching, they go, I guess I never really saw myself when I did the LSI. It was a benchmark. And then they're realizing, oh my God, I thought my communication skills were great. Well, no, the reality comes out from their subconscious mind that no, they have a lot of growth. And so, yeah, let's move ahead and talk about one of my favorites, the stress indicator and health planner. And why is this important for people? Tell us.
Well, when we think about it, and it was interesting because in the US right now, 80% of young people don't qualify to apply to the military because they are unfit. Physically unfit. 80%.
Wow.
80%.
That's huge.
They're now moving to 70% being obese or overweight. Wellness is the totality. So for those people that are listening or watching, I have a diploma in nutrition and genetics. The co-author, Dr. Gwen, has a wellness clinic in California. When we think about being effective in life, is all these stressors take us out. So we think about you heard the word cortisol, or you hear the word around, I don't get my sleep, I don't have concentration. Is that more people are suffering from really a biological deficiency? Now, there was a book, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the last one, called Brain Energy by
No.
Dr. Palmer. He is the vice provost in the Harvard Psychiatric Center. He really got picked on by his colleagues because he says, listen, he said, um, mental illness is mostly a metabolic disorder. He had patients who had been on
Ah,
meds for 20 years
yeah.
for psychosis or for bipolar, that he got them off their meds from a ketogenic approach or diet with all the other factors that we're talking about. What's your purpose? Where you're going? Do I play to my strengths? All these things. And so when we think about wellness, is if I don't have the energy to bring, then I'm not going to focus. I'm not going to have the brain fog. Now, my mother-in-law is 95. She's in the home as we're recording this alive. My parents are 92 and 90. When I go
Wow.
into these places, what is it that we want when we get older? We want quality of life.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these people, they might be alive, but they died 20 years ago. They can barely move, they can barely engage life, they
Yeah.
can't do things. My
Mm-hmm.
wife and I, my wife probably plays tennis more than me, about 3, 4, 5 times a week. I'm trying to do 2 or 3 times a week. When the weather's
Mm-hmm.
nice, we walk just about every day. And so we're trying to be active. There's no reason to be sick when you're older. And so, and
Mm-hmm.
by the way, what you do in your 20s is affecting you in your 40s. What you do in your 40s is affecting your 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so we're not doing the other thing that we're not doing is that we're not creating muscle mass. So the latest research
Yeah.
around longevity is do I do is the strength of my lower body. So my quad muscles, my calf, my hamstrings, all of those lead into it. And then you and I are both around the nutritional side. What am I putting into my body? What am I
Mm-hmm.
listening to? All
Mm-hmm.
of these are inputs. So the Stress Educator and Health Planner is our longest tool, has 120 questions for the
Big.
purposes of benchmarking in giving you it's not a replacement for your doctor. However, I would suggest to you, and I have to be careful how I say this. In 1987, I was misdiagnosed as manic depressive. It's in
Mm-hmm.
my book. I talk about this story. And I was put on antidepressant lithium. And within 2 weeks, I was ready to kill somebody because I didn't need it in my body. I was actually hypoglycemic. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was medicating myself with all these sugars. When we think about the sort of corrupt food industry in the world,
Mm-hmm.
is that all this food is killing us when it's all processed, and my longevity goes down because of that. But now I have all this sugar. We have kids with ADHD. A lot of that because their diet is full of all these toxins, as well as sort of the agricultural process. So the Stress Indicator Health Planner, you can have all these things, but it was who was it? I was trying to think about this. Most of us have like hundreds of goals that we have in life. If you're sick and you are in terminal cancer, you have one goal. That is it. That is you all of
To
a sudden
live.
it's gone from 100 goals to one, I want to
Mm-hmm.
live. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you take away wellness and health and vibrance, then your ability to contribute goes way down and you
Mm-hmm.
suffer and you don't have to suffer. So if we can get our act together, there's a study done that said that walking has more positive effect for your mental health than any of these
Yeah.
antidepressants.
I read that. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
so when we think about these things, it is this active evolved lifestyle. Now, the other side in the stress one, we talk about interpersonal stress. So if you have toxic relationships, what is that doing to erode your soul? And
Mm-hmm.
we talk about time management. What am I do? Am I caught up in this workaholism? And do I have space for myself? Do I give myself permission to relax where I'm always thinking about something else? I can get addicted to my phone. I mean, it's just this thing where we get this dopamine rush. So as a society, we need to consciously push back on these things And that's what the stress indicator and health planner does for people. Does it really matter? And we go in a different way than if you're going to go to your doctor, most of them are going to give you some kind of pill if you have a condition. What we want to do is really think about functional medicine, is that our bodies are meant to heal. If we create the right environment from an emotional and from what we intake and what we're doing, our activity level, then most of us will be healthy.
So let's move into the third one, third assessment on self-worth. And I understand you have a new online course and it includes mental health. So is the self-worth one to be done after the stress indicator and health planner? How does that work?
Well, one of the reasons that people like our assessments is that they're built as a congruent complementary model, meaning if I take the self-worth from CRG, it's not going to be in conflict with the stress, or it's not going to be in conflict with the personal style or the values. They work as a system. And so they're complementary. It's not to say that other assessments don't work or don't can't be beneficial. It's just that ours work as a system as a developmental. There's no right or wrong. If you want to do the self-worth first, you can do it first. So we believe in a concept of what we call situational self-worth. So when I was growing up, I was picked on in high school. I was the eldest of a very strict home. And so my worldview, my own self-worth was very low. In fact, I tried to commit suicide when I was 18. So I understand that space. Yet at the same time, even though I was picked on in high school and kind of the outcast, I was the farmer kid going to the city school, which was just a small town. I was still a national award winner in 4-H, which is a youth group for agricultural people. How's that possible? Because the environment is situational. So in the self-worth, we teach that you can have situational self-worth in the context of work. Okay, can you feel good? In your family, not so much. So I grew up, and this is not really to put anything in my own parents, but my mom is an adult child of an alcoholic. So she was abused as a child physically when my grandpa would drink alcohol and go on his binges. She's 90 and she's still dealing with some of those things. Well, that then downstream to me as far as living in fear, having those kinds of things. So this self-worth thing was passed on. The other side is my grandmother from my dad's side. She was one of the most critical people on the planet. So that critical nature, meaning we don't ever compliment somebody because that really could puff them up. We just want to correct them. We never want to affirm them. So that was the environment that I grew up with. So the self-worth inventory is really a benchmarking tool about how do I think and feel about myself. And then there's also this false humility. I can't, feel proud about myself. I said, well, that's not true. There's a big difference between confidence and arrogance. Arrogance is I'm better than you. Confidence is I feel grounded and centered that I have a contribution and that I have value. Now, I get a lot of my value from my spiritual roots and me as a pastor and just my belief system that, I'm not here by accident and that I'm here for a reason. And so I'm not sure how people, if they don't have a spiritual sort of foundation, how they achieve that. But in this, we actually break down, 12 steps in the self-worth in the online course called Unlock Your Confidence and Improve Your Mental Health around things like what is your purpose? How do I play to my strengths? What's the direction I'm doing? And your wellness, again, as far as we integrate, so all the assessments cross-pollinate one another around the affirmation to move forward. Like even my book around purpose in life. Why are you here? What are you supposed to do? Where are you supposed to contribute? So everybody talks about mental health, but are they really doing what needs to be done to be able to get people to that next level where it's an action oriented? And that's what that course is about.
You talking about your parents, and one of our coaches yesterday was saying that her eldest client is 93 years old. And I thought, how wonderful is that? That 93-year-old wants to fill up her tank again, right? Keeps filling that gas tank. I don't know if the coach did assessments with her. I don't know, but certainly the coaching is really greatly helping this woman to change her life, improve her life, even at the age of 93. So we were all celebrating with her. I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah.
Well, you know, Betska, I've said this before. My joke is that Moses was 80 before his first real job. So so what are you complaining about? So yeah, get
Yeah.
on it. Isn't that amazing? And there
Yeah.
was a research, you'll love this. Again, I don't remember the source, but there was a study done. At what age do we contribute the most to society? And the age
What is
group
that?
was 63 to 67. So
Wow.
so we're mature, we
Yeah.
have some sage advice, and
Hmm.
we're not everybody, but most people are past the ego part. So
Yeah.
they're hey, I don't care what you think. I mean, I've got
Hmm.
50 years of experience in this space. You're welcome to your opinions, but I don't agree. That's not who I am. That's what's going on. And so we're secure in who we are. We
Yeah.
have life experience, and we can bring that to bear, and we have a lot to contribute. Because I believe,
Yeah.
one of the things everybody talks about, discrimination. Well, what about ageism? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
and we don't really we want to lean into. There's many cultures, and Raj, you could maybe appeal to this. Where many cultures, maybe this is true in India, where the elderly are looked up to rather than down to, and so
Yeah,
that's because
absolutely.
they have the
Yes.
wisdom, they have the.
Hmm.
Think about it as a grandparent, Betska, that we were talking about that sort of off air, but
Hmm.
just leaning into those kids and loving them. There's nobody else
Hmm.
that can do that at our
No,
age. I
that's
mean,
right.
we
Yeah.
are first, the blood, and so family is a unit, and the I'll call it sage wisdom, not of the elderly, but those that have gone before us is an important part. So
Yes,
that
for
all
sure.
fits in that as well.
Let's end this segment with your personal style indicator because I know that's one of your signature tools. Talk about the benefits of the PSI for anyone.
Okay. Well, first of all, when we think about, and thank you for that, the personal style indicator is now the number one rated tool globally by participants because of the
Mm,
richness. So when
mm,
we think about assessments, there was one of our competitors did a study, said, okay, what percentage of people could realize their full potential without knowing, and most people watching will call that personality. It was
mm.
2%. And here's why. We
Oh,
believe that your personality or personal style, as we call it, is a natural predisposition, meaning you're born a
mm,
certain way. So
yeah.
we are, and I believe, now this is my position, we are perfectly created for the assignments that we have. So there's the nature and there's the nurture. This is the nature side. This is really unchangeable. And the reason we believe that is that if there wasn't an anchor part of our personality that wasn't consistent, then Betska, you would be me and I would be you and you would be John tomorrow. Or Raj would swap. So there is a consistency. I can count on me being me. Now, the next one
Yeah.
is we bring us wherever we go. So knowing who I am, my propensities, and all the research is clear. I need to play to my strengths. Do I know what
Hmm.
those strengths are? I need to mitigate my weaknesses. What are those? What does that mean? How can I bring and work in a role and responsibility that plays to my personal style strengths? Now, gifts, talents, and abilities of purpose are separate measures. So I could have the same personality style or dimensions or profile as you. You want to be a police officer. I want to work in healthcare. So
Yeah.
those are separate passions. So a lot of times there were other personality assessments out there try to push people into careers based on the
Mm,
profile. We don't
mm,
actually believe in that. I think you
mm,
are moved in towards what we call the nature of the role and the responsibility. So I can bring my whole process. So imagine you have a water glass in front of you, and that water glass is full to the top with water. That is the energy that you can bring to that dimension or that pattern that you have in life. Well, let's take that same water glass. Let's make it almost empty, a little bit in the bottom. And now I'm going to ask you to do a role or responsibility that's not a fit for who you are, how you were born, how you unfolded. So you're going to drink out of this water glass, and in a very short moment, it's going to be empty. And then
mm.
what's going to happen? I'm going to have guilt. I'm going to have pressure. I'm going to have stress because every moment after that is doing something that's not a natural propensity. Now, my style is not an excuse for my behavior, but at the same time, I need to be conscious, awake, and aware to mostly play to my strengths. But I can't do that if I
Yeah.
don't know what it is. And that's
Hmm.
why when people take our personal style indicator, they are transformed by this awareness, and every single person on the planet should take it. I mean, there's no exceptions because every single person on the planet, and we have it in 13 different languages. It's in Arabic, it's in Chinese, it's in Swedish, it's in German, it's in Spanish, it's in Thai. So it doesn't matter. All Japanese is the global. So there's this global sort of environmental influence of how you see life. But personal style is foundational to the condition of humanity. We all have it. And so that brings us to how we can contribute at the highest level. And now I can do the one thing that we always talk about, be intentional in life and contribute at the highest level, because I know that I know who I am. When I'm bringing my ability to say no is equally important as my ability to say yes based on what my strengths are. And I can communicate that to you as part of knowing who I am. And then the same thing for you, respecting you. Remember the old saying, kids are to be seen, not
heard.
What's that about? So those of us that are communicators, Betska, you and me, we're not okay.
No.
Who started that? So my dad always said I talk too much. I said I got even. Now I get paid to do it. So
I love it. I love it.
So I love him. He was just doing the best that he could. So how can we even, as a parent to the style of the person? Like, I was picked on in school. Why don't you teach the way that I learn? Why don't you lead the way that I follow? Why aren't you more like me? All these words. Why don't you sell the way that I buy? All of those were based on this premise of understanding the differences and then meeting people where they're at and honoring where they're at.
So Ken, to wrap up here, I here are a few key points that I've gleaned from these two parts that we're presenting here today to our audience. And we need to invest more in personal assessments because most people are delusional. I think you said 80%. And we want to reveal who we really are. That to me was a real key. And to make sure that we are ready to do the work that we need to do to grow, to be better parents, to be better leaders, to be better followers, whoever we are, be better at it all. And I really love that whole piece around diet and biology. Your whole slide there was very important for us to fully understand, including the spiritual aspect. So Ken, you're wonderful. I love you. Thank you.
One item, so we don't forget, is that we have the free gift.
Yes,
and that is that's my ebook, The Quest for Purpose, and that's at Keis, KENKEIS.com/CLI. I don't know where I got that from. So it's a hidden. So that hidden URL, Raj and Betska will insert it in the notes somewhere, and we'll get it to you, and you'll be able to have a free download of my Quest for Purpose book.
Thank you for that gift. That's awesome. Thank you again, Ken. You're fabulous. I know you got to run, and we appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today, because this was hugely important, and my gut told me that we needed to have you back. So thank you so much.
Always an honor to serve and play with you. Much appreciated.
Thank you.